Hi everyone, we're going to get started. So this is going to be an overview of venture investing in Detroit and Michigan. I have some experts that I'll let them introduce themselves. My name is Tu Lee. I work with Mac. First of all, I want to thank Mac and Jessica for inviting me to moderate this panel. I'm looking forward to learning from everyone on the panel as well, as much as you are. And I'll start by introducing myself. I grew up in Pontiac, went to Michigan State from Spartan, worked at GM, moved out to Silicon Valley after grad school. I went to Carnegie Mellon to grad school. Lived out in Silicon Valley for about 7 years, then moved to China and started a consultancy in the mobility space. I'm here working with Mac at TechTown as an EIR expert in residence. So if you're a mobility entrepreneur, I'd love to meet you, learn more about your idea or business to see how we can help. So I'll move it over to Josh to let him introduce himself.
All right. I said keep it close. So. All right, it's great to be here. Thanks again for having me. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak to everybody, and really excited. Actually, too, I'm appreciative of you for coming in. Tu just got off a plane. He's been in China for 3 weeks. So I want to thank you for taking the time on Saturday to come in.
I'm away.
Anyways, I'm Josh. I'm born and raised in northern Michigan. This conversation is about capital and how to access capital to fund your business. And I think for me, I want to start with kind of why I do this work. So really for me, I view capital as, and economic equity more broadly, as the path to true justice. And we need to, across our economy, in order to maintain competitiveness locally, but also globally, really think about how we frame and how we think about creating a more truly inclusive economy, and capital allocation is a critical part of that. And so for me, growing up in northern Michigan, where there was not a lot of industry, there was not a lot for me to kind of point to from a career standpoint in understanding how and what I wanted to navigate my professional career. I kind of just did the opposite of what I saw. I went, after going to Michigan State, moved to Chicago, New York, and worked with these big Fortune 50 companies like Pepsi and Disney in supply chain and digital innovation. And it just really wasn't, I wasn't able to serve the purpose that I felt like I was called to do. And so just very quickly, knowing that there's this groundswell and increasing opportunity here in Michigan locally, wanted to move back to Michigan, transition to the entrepreneurial world, and make sure that I was building a career where I could have a market level impact and do it in a way that supported the creation of a truly inclusive economy. So for me, that came through capital allocation. And so I have been privileged to work with Jeff at Community Angels. I work, and Darren, who's in the audience, the founder, who'll be speaking later, founder of Just Air, and as well as working with the TechTown folks here in capital strategy. We've done some really cool work around capital strategy and framing and creating ways for you to go from idea to MVP and secure initial traction. And it's been an ultimate honor to kind of have this opportunity. I'm grateful to be here and speak with you about the capital continuum and learn more about how I can also support your journey after this panel. Thank you.
So my name is Virginia Goddard. I grew up in Inkster, Michigan, where Dad worked for General Motors. I've been around the automotive industry pretty much my whole life. Went to undergrad at Eastern Michigan, degree in finance, and then I did executive at Michigan State. And after undergrad, I went into banking. So my whole career has been in corporate. a lot of money. I'll get to that. And inside of General Motors, I worked on a corporate dev team and innovation maintenance. So I've been in this startup ecosystem for a really long time. Why do I do this work? Why did I step away from corporate? In 11 years inside of General Motors, I saw very little representation, whether it's women, black or brown people, when it comes to investing or looking startups partnering with General Motors. And I realized that I had a skill set that I could take outside of corporate and help bridge that gap to make sure we're getting the adequate opportunities. Right now, I'm working on building a fund so I can invest in my community, largely around the sustainability, future transportation ecosystem. What I know from what I've seen is our community is very tech forward, but we often don't go the extra mile and build some of these bigger innovations. And our community is never left behind when we have the ability to make it work for us. We just need those things to come to the marketplace so that we're getting credibility, we're evolving with how disruption is happening, and we also have opportunity to play.
Cool. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Good.
Good. My name is Jeff Ponders. That is my daughter back there. That is. And I am the only person here without ties to Michigan State. Detroit native, grew up here, went to school out in Philadelphia, came back to build companies. And I've been obsessed with how we turn ideas into value exchange since I was 4 years old. And so I've been building companies literally since I was 4 years old, trying to figure it out. So I've been a founder, been a tech founder, been a coach. I'm still a coach, and I'm still a tech founder. Today I get to be an investor. Been an angel with Darren, co-founded Commune Angels, looking to build a more inclusive network of both angels and founders. But I also invest as a venture investor with ID Ventures, and we invest in high-growth, high-scale companies coming out of Michigan. I actually made that VC transition probably about a decade sooner than I anticipated. I was running an ed tech company, and an opportunity came while I was in EIR at Tech Town. And also in EIR at Tech Town again now. Yeah, got the opportunity to go on the other side of the table, having been on the founder side, going to investors and trying to raise money. You know, you're on the angel side, figuring out how to write smaller checks, but now figuring out how larger, more transformative capital happens. It's been really interesting to be in all the seats and understanding how all the different parts work. So now I get the opportunity as an investor to give people behind the scenes information on how this game really works. What I'm investing in somebody, I take a lot of pride and pleasure in helping us figure out how to navigate this capital journey. And more importantly than just getting access to capital, is also making sure we have ideas that are investable, building teams that are investable, and going up to markets that we're attacking with solutions that can actually transform marketplaces. So I'm also raising future entrepreneurs, as you see some little minions running around. One of whom is an aspiring coder. If he comes and asks you about how to build something, please be nice to him and help him figure it out. We're too rapid to be here, and I'm really, really proud of the work that we do coming out of Michigan, both on the founder side, but also as investors trying to figure out how to make really cool innovation come to the world. So.
Yeah, so really quickly, I've lived in China for 13 years, moved back here just under 2 years ago, and was super excited about joining Tech Town as an EIR because I see a lot of opportunity. And wanted to raise this question first to Rogeria. Why is it the right time to invest in tech in Detroit right now? You know, Hacking with the Homies, this conference is kind of really trying to create a grassroots effort. So why is it the right time now?
I think the time is right now. As a result of all the disruption we're seeing, there's so many industries that are full of disruption, and this is the time when those multi-million, billion-dollar companies are being built. It's the time when those ideas are bridging the gaps that we're seeing in these new evolution of strategies are being built. And so this is, and I split my time. I spent time in Michigan, I spent time in Detroit, I spent time in Miami. And what I'm seeing here is this, and we've been here for a while, it's kind of a blank slate. there are so many opportunities that are wide open. Where you go to an LA or New York, it's really hard to break the red tape to be able to build and get the type of support that you have here in Tech Town and on this panel. Break into access to capital, grants, programs. Those things are really harder to do in some of the larger ecosystems. But in Michigan, it's a blank slate, and there are a lot of people waiting to help you. There's a lot of fostering happening. Like what I see here is a lot of young people talking, learning. This is how we gain a competitive edge, by learning with each other, building with each other. And I'm seeing more cohesiveness in the city of Detroit than I've ever seen in my life. And I'm seeing some of the same things happening in Miami. It's more the Latin community that have a conjoined cohesiveness, but I'm seeing it here in the Black community. So this is why I think now is the time, it's optimal timing. And yeah, there are so many new things coming, new innovations coming online. Oh, also this is the largest wealth transfer coming up too. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunity to bring in some of that wealth into our community.
So, Dan Allen was the ex-president of Cruise, which is an autonomous vehicle company owned by General Motors. He had stated 5 years ago that the robotaxi or autonomous vehicle sector was a multi-trillion-dollar sector alone. So lots of opportunities, and I'll pose that question to Jeff. You know, outside of mobility and transportation, what other areas do you see in Detroit Tech that you are, you know, really looking forward to seeing entrepreneurs in?
So it's funny, being from Detroit, I worked in automotive mobility for a while too. It's like the one sector I'm leaning against. I guess, you know, I can be counterintuitive. So there's a lot, I think, just kind of thinking about the assets we have and the people that we are, you know, the adage, Detroit hustles harder, we've got all this blue blood running in the veins, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's something really interesting that's coming out of here a bit with some hardware tech. I think the same thing is true, and I'm going to say this, I feel dirty for saying it. AI. Like, everything can be, anything can be AI, but
It's a buzzword that's kind of...
it's a buzzword. It's like saying innovation, strategery. But the reality is, like, people are getting smarter and being a bit more savvy about how we leverage AI to transform how we get stuff done. And in a market where investors can be very trend-oriented, you say AI and your average investor gets all excited. But hey, if you're trying to raise money, that's not the worst thing that can happen to you, right? Have an investor excited about what you're doing. So I think we have a unique opportunity coming out of Michigan, Detroit in particular. Hardware, AI, manufacturing tech, obviously clean tech, and sustainable energy, et cetera. So I think these are areas these are things that are happening in Detroit that not only, honestly, we're building everything here. So it's not like there's any particular sector that just has to be bigger. But when you think about, as an investor and as a founder, a big question you have to answer is, why should I be the person doing this? Why is it the right team to do it? And sometimes it's not just about the person in the background, it's also about the ecosystem they operate in. And one of the advantages that we have coming out of Detroit is we know how to make stuff. Whether it's making the things or the process to make things. So when you say you're from Detroit and you're doing something that's about building, legitimately building a hard thing, people take you more seriously. So I think those are the areas that I think are cool for innovation to come out of Detroit. However, let me just be really clear. I don't care what you're building as long as you're the right person and the right team to do it. I think that's the thing to really lean into. So don't just look at me saying, hey, hardware and manufacturing tech and supply chain, come out of Detroit. No, if you're building something that's really cool and you are the right person and the right team to do it, go. Just go do it.
Yeah, I just want to double click on that a little bit more. Because I think a lot of times people, especially from the outside, right, people see us and they just think that we're mobility, or they even just think that we're automotive. And we got across the state and a lot out of Detroit, unicorns across sectors, right? Like there's a $26 billion AI fintech company out in Grand Rapids right now. And there, you know, we've got StockX here in Detroit. Like, there are, we have the talent and the experience across industries, not just in mobility, to build these multi-billion-dollar companies. And I think, you know, one of the things that I get excited about, especially with everything that's going on and through other great communities like Black Tech Saturdays, is the idea that, like, what we're doing is creating an environment, creating where we're closing the belief gap in what we think we can do. And so whether it's, you know, again, you know, across industries, I would also add, you know, from my perspective, you know, life sciences and using some critical technology like artificial intelligence for drug discovery, like that is an awesome application that we can invest in. Or, you know, looking at adjacent industries to mobility, like supply chain tech, right? Like, we've got that level of expertise here in Detroit, across the state, and we just need to lean into it. And I'm really excited about seeing how we're coming together to really believe that we can do that and will do that, and frankly must do that over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Can I just jump here one time? Just for clarity, when we say mobility, I think most people automatically go to autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles. Mobility, there's a long range of mobility, and some of the things that has to happen for us to even get to autonomy is, you know, sensors in the road, sensors in the streets, solar. Like, there are so many things in between. So what's happening? Mobility is becoming tech, and so we're thinking only, not everybody, but a lot of people are only thinking about the cars and the charging stations. But there's so much in between. So some of these SaaS, software opportunities, hardware, it's a really big playing field. And I think we have to open up our minds to it and also know what it all entails and do the research. I think people do think of Detroit as the grid and the you know, we do have the big three, but when you look at, well, I will say working out of General Motors started calling themselves a tech company. They're not there yet, but when we look at these cars like Google and Apple, they have large features in these cars, Tesla. This is all a computer that's running, and so this is where we're moving to. There's a convergence, and when we think about tech, the tech can be used in whether it's a vehicle or just like some app, like those things are converging as one, and it's not just the automobile. It's a computer and the brain behind the automobile to make it work.
And to add and piggyback off of that, currently technology companies know what we buy, what we search for on the internet, you know, what entertains us. But most technology companies don't have that last piece, you know, transportation needs, okay? It's an amazing opportunity for the traditional automakers if they can make a pivot and become fast enough to take advantage of it. But if we look at technology within the vehicle, once we get to level 2, level 3 autonomous, there's going to be a lot of time in the vehicle where we can do other things, right? So that doesn't necessarily need to be automotive-related technology, okay? And what's really important is if you think about some of the back-end stuff. One simple example, a connected vehicle, and let's separate electric from connected, because you don't have to be electric to be connected. But a connected vehicle, it creates or generates over a terabyte of data a day. That creates more opportunities and challenges in the cloud space, right? So, I mean, don't just look at the immediate challenge. Look through a couple different layers, and if you're an expert in the cloud space, there's going to be an opportunity for you because there's going to be many more cars that are going to be connected on the roads in the United States, North America, Europe, and the rest of the world. So that's your TAM, okay? Love what you guys are saying, but what will it take Detroit to move from a promising tech hub in the U.S. to a globally competitive center for tech innovation and talent? I'm throwing some heavy words at you. So, Josh, let me start with you.
Yeah, I think we need to redefine risk capital and, frankly, the way in which we're allocating to that and testing and kind of new solutions and new approaches across the capital continuum. When I say capital continuum, this means that, like, not all capital is the right capital or the right for you or for your business at any given time. And so one of the things that I think is really cool with what we're doing here at Tech Town, and Nicholas and Amanda are here, they're also part of the team that are helping support Venture 313. And Venture 313 is a collaborative program that is helping actually take and fund with non-dilutive resources. So this is grant-based funding that doesn't take a piece of your business, it doesn't count as debt, and it's providing $10,000 to $15,000 for you to build your proof of concept, to build your MVP, and move from customer discovery and the idea that you have, and start building it and securing, building it to the point where you've got a minimum viable product that you can start to establish some initial traction that you can then take to either understand, hey, this is a business that I can build and that I want to keep building, and continue to go after other types of funding like venture funding, or you can choose to go a different direction with it, and maybe that's pursue debt, or maybe that's bootstrap it and just build it based off of either resources that you have or the revenue that you're able to generate. And so I say that to say, we need to redefine risk capital here in the state to make it to make it more efficient for companies not only to go from idea to MVP, but then once they have that initial product, once they start to secure initial traction, they've got some on-ramps so they can move more quickly through critical milestones that will ultimately allow them to accelerate the scale or their ability to scale the business that they're building. And so redefining risk capital will be one big thing.
I'm gonna add on to this real quick. How many people here are building a company? Show of hands.
Nice.
How many people are solo founders? Show of hands. I see some questionable hands. I'm not quite sure if it's solo founder.
Have down. You gotta have some conviction if you're an entrepreneur.
That's true. So I think, so there are multiple answers here. I'm talking to the homies, so I'm gonna talk to the homies. So it's real easy for a lot of us to have a hustle mentality. We're hacking things together, often by ourselves. If you've ever been a tech founder before, you know how hard it is to find co-founders. It'd be really, really, really hard to find people who share passion, have complementary skill sets, etc. I think one of the things that as on the investor side, I struggled with this. My first company, I was a solo founder, non-technical, for about 15 months before I found a co-founder. I spent all my money, all the money trying to get the thing out the door. And I got out the door and learned a lot, and eventually I started paying my mortgage, right? One of the things I struggle with on the investor side is the same thing I struggle with on the founder side, which is I see a lot of founders, but not a ton of teams, especially within our community. And I think for us to transform how people look at Detroit, and not just how people look at us, but also really about can we just getting more wins. First thing first, we need more wins coming out of Detroit. We need more companies that are building, exiting, and then building new things. We need the exits because people see winners and they say, I want to invest in winners. So in terms of attracting capital, we need more winners coming out of Detroit. And not just winners because our parents said we were winners today, but actual companies that are having successful financial exits. And I think in order for us to get there, we need to do a better job of working together on companies. And so I don't need 50 solo founders or 60 founders or 60 companies that have 60 CEO founders and then sharing 10 CTO co-founders amongst all the companies. So all the others who are technical, who are co-founders with 5 companies, you're not necessarily covering those people, unfortunately. But having more folks just working together on ideas that are big enough that can actually get to exit. So everybody got a good idea. Most ideas ain't gonna make it. But if we can come together and actually refine each other, iron sharpening iron, and get to the best ideas, bring our teams together. So again, we got a bunch of devs in the house. if three of y'all work together on something that's really big, y'all know how fast and how far you can get. And so put some of those ideas on the back burner and let's really go hard on the ones that go really far. And I think that gets us to more wins, which brings in more capital. And not just, kind of early stage capital, but big dollars. And there are folks who want to invest in Detroit, they just can't find big enough ideas and strong enough teams. So I would encourage us to, let's put our egos on the side, let's double down on the best ideas. And y'all know whose ideas are really, really good. Like, you working on great ideas yourself, you know the ideas your friends working on, and you know which one's like, yeah, that could really be the one though. Like, let's double down on those ideas so that we can get to those wins faster. Because also, by the way, speed to exit is also a thing that's worth considering. We get to those ideas, get those ideas out the door, get to those exits faster, and then we go back and work on those other ideas, building off of the infrastructure and the wins that we've had. So I would encourage us to put our lesser ideas aside, put our pride aside, and spend more time working together to build bigger companies and move faster.
And let me add, before I hand this over to over here, you don't have to have a unicorn, right? I mean, a win is, as long as it's putting money in your pocket, it's hiring people from Michigan, that's a win for us. And we build small ones until we build big ones. Because right now, we're trying to hit home runs every single time. And I think there's this misnomer that you need to be a unicorn idea in order to be successful. That's not the case. I would rather see small, medium-sized wins so we can get to those unicorns. But Josh, you going to say something? Okay. We're here?
I'll just echo what Jeff just said. I can't echo it loud enough of working together. Oftentimes, investors don't want to invest in solo founders. Same thing with a solo GP, like I'm raising a fund. Most institutions don't want to invest in me. And there is strength in numbers to get things done. I think we're seeing there are already eyes on Detroit. Like we were in PitchBook as the #1 VC ecosystem. And so things are happening. Isn't that crazy? Things are happening. People are paying attention. And there is some grassroots happening here. And we have to grab the bull by the ears and continue to move in that direction. And part of that is striking out some wins. And it might not be a unicorn, but it's a markup on a startup that shows up, it's a statistic in PitchBook, and that continues to drive investors into this region. The Midwest alone, oftentimes startups coming out of these regions, they're a lower investment, they're not marked as high. So it's attractive to invest in some of our companies coming out of the Midwest versus going to the coastal cities because now you have to spend a lot more money. And maybe there's something there, maybe it's not. But if we can prove that there's something here, it continues to drive more investors to this region. So I think what's happening is already the foundation for how Detroit can be a stronger ecosystem. And I think we just got to keep working together.
And let me also add, there's probably going to be a decent number of layoffs in the next 5-7 years in the traditional automotive space. Yep. So you have opportunities with skilled individuals, 10, 20 years of some deep skills, especially in the hard tech. So you as entrepreneurs are supposed to be storytellers and salespeople. Okay? So you got to sell your story to other people so they drink that Kool-Aid with you. Okay, so I think that's kind of looking forward a little bit. There's still be opportunities for people to join your team, but you need to be able to convince them as well. So go ahead.
One more thing. Solving problems. So that's the key to all of this. You've got to be solving a really big problem. If it's a problem you're facing, it's probably the same problem everybody else is facing. And so don't fall in love with your ideas if you just think it's cool. Make sure it is filling a gap, solving a problem. Those are the ideas that are getting funded. Whether it's a grant, a venture, debt, if it's solving a problem, people are paying attention to you.
I mean, and that's why y'all teaming up in this room is so important, because I think about it from the standpoint of like control what you can control, right? And when you're building a thing and not waiting or depending on someone else to build the thing, you can move faster. What do we call it? We call it pivot, right? When you do understand, hey, this is not the product, this problem, maybe isn't necessarily what I thought we need to be solving, we need to go this way. When y'all are the builders and y'all are working together, you can work 3 times as fast, and you can make those changes so that you are ultimately moving as quickly as you can and not kind of held up by a skill set that you might need. And so developers teaming up amongst themselves to create and build businesses is really exciting, because again, it's at the earliest stage where we invest. It's not necessarily the idea that we know is going to come to market 10 years down the road. It's the team, it's the founders, and your ability to move quickly is very investable.
Listen, man, let me just build it. That's so big, man. Listen, so can you build it? 1, cool. Can y'all get it to a customer? Like, strong technical team, I love that. But I need somebody who can sell the thing. Like, and do it in a scalable way, ideally. So give me 2, 3 devs, and somebody, I don't care if it's one of the devs, I don't care who it is, give me my kid who can go in here and sell this thing to the right buyer at the right price and do it over and over again. Come on, man, like that, you literally cannot stop that team. So, yeah, let's get good teams going.
Yeah, and the founders need to sell. I mean, I think the founders need to sell, especially to the early customers themselves. I mean, you got a great example. Again, I'll just mention it again. He's
walking away from
Darren Rising, right?
Mr.
He's
Man.
building and can sell, right? And like that is a critical combination.
Yeah.
Remember that the sales department in any company is the only one that generates revenue. Everything else is a cost center. So if you don't create revenue, you're not a company. Okay?
There's a whole saying, we're betting on the jockey, not the horse.
Yep.
So we're betting on the team, not necessarily. Your idea is important, but we're really wanting to know that you can take this to the full 9. So it's a team more than the idea.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to talk about some entrepreneurs' characteristics. I already mentioned 2 that I think are extremely important, being good storytellers and salespeople. So in your collective experience, working with startups, what do you see as the most enduring qualities for successful entrepreneurs? We're Gary, we'll start with you.
Coachable is really, really big. When I'm working, I do a lot of mentoring. When I'm working with a team and I'm giving them suggestions, I'm not fighting it. Don't be defensive. I'm really helping you, because I've seen this a million times. So being coachable. What I've seen over the last 10 years is a lot of startups that have built an amazing company, and the CEO cannot scale the company, can't sell, and so he gets unseated. And that's because it's not coachable. Know when you need to switch seats to scale your company. I think customer discovery is really important. That's out the gate, that's where we gotta be. And again, I said it earlier, we find so many entrepreneurs that are in love with their idea, and that's great, but we gotta sell this thing. Somebody gotta buy your service, and so we need to understand who are your customers. And the being willing to pivot. So if you find out you're building this thing and the customer discovery isn't going where you thought it would be, you gotta be willing to pivot and pivot quickly. Like fail fast and keep going. And then a strong team, I think we already touched upon that.
What, Jim?
Yes. Everything Gary just said. I think so when I think about the founders who are most successful, I've actually been having this conversation the last week or so, with our team at IDB, but also broadly. So first things first, the best entrepreneurs are really, really good learners. Like, you're always learning. You're learning people, you're learning your customer, you're learning your team. And every single one of them takes the assumption that they're wrong and they don't know everything. And so they're very open to learning. So they're taking in new information consistently, and they're getting better because of it. Every founder who I know who's successful is really good at that. Two is something we've been paying attention to a lot more. There is this breed of founder who is just really fast, like incredibly responsive. Like it's ungodly how fast they can respond to an email, text message. You think they don't have lives. I'm thinking about a particular founder right now. He's on his third company. Every company he's had has been really successful. This one right now is tracking to potentially be a unicorn. And this man got like 4 kids, married, works 6 days a week. He's funny and fun, and he got a team of 30 people, and legit, I can send him an email right now. I would put money that within 5 minutes he responded with a thoughtful response, and I don't know how he does it. I'm not the only person to text emails to guy. But these founders who are really, really fast, it makes a difference. Like if somebody reaches out to you right now saying, hey, I'm looking for somebody to do X, Y, and Z, you being the first one to respond with a good response is probably the difference in getting that work done. And so these founders are really fast. So they learn, they're selfless, they're fast. And there's, my kids here, so I can't say what I really want to say.
Whisper it in the judge's ear, maybe he's
Don't be a jerk, but use more colorful language. Right? There's a thing where I can have a founder who, I can have a great team, like legit, not just a strong CEO, but like a really good team in a market that's big enough, they got a product, they're ready to go. But if that person is a jerk to somebody on my team, nah, we don't pass. And then when somebody asks about them, I'm not gonna talk bad and say, listen, just be really careful with this founder. They don't always handle pressure well. Don't be a jerk. In fact, be really nice. Be really, really nice. You'll find that being smart, being open-minded, being fast, and being really kind and really nice to people will get you very, very far. I've got a founder who we invested in this guy really early, and honestly, his company should have went out of business 5 times. Super struggle. Raised a ton of money, they were burning for so much cash. I hated their burn rate as a pre-seed company. I'm like, yo, I want your salary, and that's not fair, right? They're burning through tons of cash, and they should not have made it. But because he was incredibly responsive, so one of his superpowers was his investor updates. He did a weekly update, which, if any of y'all do investor updates, it's hard to do a monthly update, let alone a weekly update. There are folks who don't do quarterly who should. But because he did this weekly update, we knew what was happening with him. He was always really cool and easy to work with. Customers, even folks who just talking, man, I just really like talking to this guy. And so he was able to sustain the company off of investor dollars that more deserving companies did not get because of his character. So being a good person was also open-minded, a good learner, hyper-focused on the customer, can be the difference in literally being successful.
And the network talks. This network talks. You will be surprised how news can travel across the world when you're a jerk.
Oh yeah, it stands out too. You'll get people nodding their head. Oh, you met with, oh, okay.
And what's the closet jerk? So people, you like, oh, I thought nah, that's not the one, bro.
And there's a difference between being a jerk and being determined. Being, confident. So there's a fine line. But
It's not that fun. Y'all know what's gonna be the jerk.
Okay, here's a visionary question for you all. Let's fast forward 20 years. What's your vision that the things we are doing now, the entrepreneurs and the ecosystem partners, are building the foundation for that success in the future? What do you see Detroit? What shows you in 20 years that Detroit has become a successful tech hub?
I got a couple things in mind. So one, in 20 years, my oldest son hires me to work for him. That makes me happy. He gonna try to hire me next week. There's
Emeritus?
no, you can be my secretary or something. No, seriously, I think a couple things. One, there's a narrative that of the brain drain in Michigan. I think that narrative doesn't exist anymore. You see people who, whether colleges and universities exist in the same way 20 years ago, but you just see people wanting to be here. Like the folks who are here don't want to leave. The folks who aren't here trying to figure out how to get here. That's one. Two, we're probably not talking about automotive as the driving economy in Michigan. And if we're talking about business, whatever. But we're not talking about the big three as Ford, Chrysler, and GM. We're talking about somebody completely.
It sounds unfortunate now, but that's a evolution.
Yeah, it's supposed to happen.
Right? So,
Yeah. So we don't talk about the big three as the same big three. And Josh mentioned earlier, us redefining risk capital. The reality is raising money in Michigan is really hard. It's really, really hard. In fact, if you're trying to raise like a large amount of capital, I don't know how you raise that money in Michigan.
you still gotta go to the coasts.
You gotta go somewhere. And I think our ecosystem evolved has larger pools of capital throughout the continuum existing here. You'll see large funds. We're talking 9-figure funds that are operating out of Michigan, who are investing in companies coming out of Michigan. Money follows talent. We think talent chases the money. The reality is the money goes where the talent is. And so us doing our part right, we'll see large funds that are present in Michigan.
Josh, what do you think?
I'd like to, and I'm hopeful that we'll see more connectivity across the state, both connectivity and collaboration across funders, but also across startups and communities. And so that's something that I'm hopeful for. Being from Northern Michigan and living in Detroit now, I'm very excited about that opportunity, and hopeful that we'll get there.
Detroit is a metropolis right now. I think we're already seeing some of the larger tech companies with their presence here, the Google, the Microsoft. That's telling. If you're watching CNBC, there's this huge campaign of Pure Michigan. It's pulling a lot of people here. When I'm traveling all around, people are like, yeah, I have property in Traverse City. I have traveled over. First time I've been up north, and it's really nice. I think there's been a narrative about Detroit and Michigan attached to it. It's dangerous, it's dirty, people don't have money, they're not smart, not educated, and that's changing. As we've seen before our eyes. And the tax base here is super attractive. The waterways is super attractive. The real estate is super attractive. I think we're gonna see a flip of like what we've seen on the coastal cities. People are gonna start to emerge more toward the middle. There is a lot of capital here. I don't think our investors are the money that's here doesn't traditionally go into startups. It go into industry businesses. And I think you're gonna see a shift in that because where we're moving to is we're seeing less M&A, mergers and acquisitions. You're probably gonna see less startup companies be acquired by companies, but you're gonna see a lot of partnership. And those investment dollars into these startups is where the return is going to come to these investors. So I think we're going to see a convergence of how money moves in Michigan. And I think a lot more industry is going to be attractive here. Honestly, I don't know what will happen to the big three as we're moving into this tech evolution. But I think there is a lot of land here and opportunity to do a lot of testing. So like in Oklahoma, there's a lot of Indian reservations where they're doing a lot of testing for like the autonomous vehicles. Miami's trying to figure it out, but it's overcrowded, so they don't have land. And I think this is one of those places that's a complete jewel that has that opportunity. I also think we'll see our importing go down, and I think we'll be building a lot more in the U.S. And again, I think this is a landscape to offer that because again, the waterways have the ability to move these things around, so you don't have a logistic nightmare that we had for COVID.
So let me add a couple of things. I'm hoping that number one, Jeff's son's company, a good portion of his revenues or that company's revenues come from outside of the United States. As someone who just came back from China, I unfortunately believe that the big three are going to have to evolve. Jim Farley said just last year it takes 30% less labor to build an electric vehicle. So right then and there, simple math says the size of these companies is going to change significantly. And if a factory takes on 30% less parts, the factory's going to get smaller. So, and let me assure you, the guys over in Beijing are not resting on their laurels. I was just at the auto show there, and some of the stuff, I mean, Tesla's not doing well in China because of all the cool companies that are happening in China. So my view of how Detroit would be successful is the rest of the world is not looking at us nostalgically, calling us the Motor City, but now it's the mobility city or the technology city. So I think that's really important because we're not competing against the guy in Grand Rapids. We're competing against the company in India. We're competing against the company in Europe, Eastern Europe. So entrepreneurs have a global perspective, and I'm hoping that, you know, there are a couple entrepreneurs here that are also going to be very successful that we're going to be reading about. And hopefully, there's one piece of advice or a couple pieces of advice that you learn or talk or listen to here that kind of help inspire you. So that's kind of how I see Detroit succeeding 20 years from now. But let me do this. I'll do a roundtable to see if there's any last comments, and then we'll open it up for questions. So Jeff, any last comments?
No. We've said a lot, so I'm really actually eager to hear your questions, and also want to give a shout out to Darren Riley because he is my saving grace right now.
Entrepreneur slash babysitter.
That's right.
So, how about you?
Just piggybacking on that, it takes a community. So I would love to see us continue to work together, and the next one of these will be busting at the seams because there's so much opportunity here.
And then just quickly, with capital specifically, as you're looking around, as you're building your company, you know, the venture track, the venture path is important, but look at your options. Look at how and what you can do to strategically protect your ownership in your company, because ultimately, when you sell it down the road, or if you choose to sell it, that's where you'll be able to maximize and optimize the generational wealth that you create. So early on, the smallest amount of money is the most expensive. So try to find as creative the different pathways as you can to maintain and hold as much ownership in your company as possible.
Can I piggyback on that really quickly? Don't underestimate your friends and family. I think sometimes we're scared to ask, and we don't know what each person in this room has. And so when you're trying to build a company, instead of going out for that very expensive money, check your network. Ask any and every, don't be afraid to ask, because you just never know what comes out of that.
Yes.
For Dear made a great point, because as an entrepreneur, and Jeff, I'm sure you can attest, as an entrepreneur, by definition, we're trying to disrupt something, right? A sector, another company. So we're going to get a lot of no's. So be resilient. Don't be afraid to ask. Ask again. Be persistent. Don't be a jerk, but be persistent. You know, these are the simple characteristics of entrepreneurs. Whether you're organized, disorganized, that's up to you. But you gotta be persistent and you gotta ask. Because you're gonna get a lot of no's. An entrepreneur's life revolves around no and maybe one or two yeses here and there. But hopefully those yeses are big.
It sounds like dating.
Yes. So
I'll shoot shots.
let's open up to questions. Anyone have any questions? Nicholas, what's going on, man? Throw us a softball. It's an easy one, man.
No. Say I've identified a problem that needs to be solved. I have a strong team, and I am generating revenue. Outside of funding, what can you offer me in my company?
Come again?
I'm generating revenue, I've got a strong team, I've identified a problem that needs to be solved. What outside of capital can your investor firms offer my company?
Let me start by saying, hopefully some mentorship and some network.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to take a question and kind of flip it a little bit, because I think there's a really good question there, which is, if you're looking at investors, it should be more than just a dollar. Because you can give money and you can go get a loan. And a loan, while you're paying interest, and ultimately you got to pay it back. You know, I'd rather pay back $1.15 on a $100,000 loan than pay somebody $10 million on a $100,000 investment.
And have given up some of my company.
Yeah. So when you're looking at investors, what you're looking for is a partner. It is marriage. Y'all, we are locked in for the life of the company in most cases. And so you want to have an investor who, one, is supportive and is not going to act against you or the company. Two, has more value than their dollar, meaning what's the strength of their network? Can they make introductions to other investors, both in this current round or future rounds? Are they smart? Can they help you solve problems? Example, in our case at IDB, we got really smart people, and we do have a broad network, and we do have strong relationships. We're also, like, I'm a former founder, I can't even say former, I'm a founder. We have other operators who've been in multiple industries, and so we can help people solve problems. We have a network of folks who can also help solve problems. In many cases, you look for, what other benefits do you have to offer? Example, do you have talent partners that can help us find our next employees, help us fire employees if we need to? And so you're gonna wanna look for just the question is, what do you have to offer beyond money? And you wanna find people who are partners who can really help enhance the value of what you're doing. Again, largely through relationships and resources. Who do you know? What have you done? And who can you help us connect with that can help us go further than whatever's in dollars?
You raise a good point, Nicholas, because remember, somebody writes you a check, you're going to start expecting things. So if you would rather use a network and everything else, the money is not as important, then you have a little bit of the leverage on your side. Okay, so.
But don't ask the question like that.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
So I grew up afraid of capital for various reasons. What advice would you have for somebody that may be in a similar position today?
Why are we afraid of capital?
Like creative control, taking decisions through the opposite direction.
So I mean, you're interviewing your capital allocators. I think it's a related question to what Nicholas asked as well, along the way, right? I think part of your job as a founder, as an entrepreneur, especially raising capital, is making sure that you're doing your own due diligence on those investors and talking to other founders that they've invested in, talking to other people maybe in your network that might know them, and then also just interviewing them in the same way that they might interview or have a conversation with you, in doing diligence to make sure that your incentives are aligned, right? I think that incentive alignment is critical, right? And what might be, it's not the same dollar. I think, again, back to Nicholas's point, like it's not the same dollar from every single investor. And so giving yourself that opportunity, and frankly being aware of what your gut tells you, or what personal red flags you might identify if someone isn't willing to or interested in having that conversation along the way. So I would say make sure that you are interviewing your investors and doing your own due diligence on them, to make sure that their incentives are similarly aligned.
And talking to their other portfolio companies. That's the game changer right there. That's the truth. That's the proof in the pudding. But anytime you're going after an investor for dollars, you should have an investor profile, a list, a profile of what you want in your investor. perfectly, but you're interviewing them as well as they're interviewing you, and you gotta, one of the things I see oftentimes, especially when I'm at conferences, people run up to me and they're pitching, have no clue what I invest in. My vertical is very narrow, so if you're pitching me on fintech, I might be able to point you in the right direction. So understand what that investor looks at. And you get a lot more respect from them. I don't understand. You understand what you may say. Hey, here I am. I have this fintech company. I know you invest in tech, mobility tech, but do you know anybody? I will be more likely to help you that way than if you just sent me through a 15-minute pitch and all I can tell you is it's not here.
So I want to say a couple of things to this, Josh. So one, money is not bad. And many of us are taught that debt is bad, selling equity. Like, we're taught to just own everything and just hoard it all. Like, and the reality is we get further faster when we partner with people. So recognize the strength of partnership, and that partnership ain't free. It costs something. So to the beginning of the question, which is a lot of us are taught to run away from people offering money. Like, money itself is a tool. It's a tool. Even when somebody says, I'm raising, I need money, no, you don't. You need something that money can help you achieve. You don't necessarily need the money. And being really clear about what it is you're trying to achieve and what you need to get there. And now we can talk about how money will achieve that. So one, let's not be afraid of money, right? Two, everything Josh McGarry just said is absolutely true. And I think we have to, be really smart about what we need money for. Like, I encourage folks when they're raising, let's not talk like, I don't ask, like, how much are you raising? I say, what are you trying to achieve? Let's talk about your milestones, and then let's get really smart about what you need to do to achieve those milestones. And then, like, I'm coaching somebody through how to set their mind. We're gonna talk about these milestones, about who are the people you need, what are the relationships you need to achieve this. All right, now how much money do we need in order to achieve those things, and then some, because nothing ever happens as fast or for the price that we think it's going to cost. So it's never really about money. It's about milestones and goals. And if we can achieve these goals, then we can get smart about the money that we need. And by the way, we need to pay ourselves. Like, if you build a company, like, oh, can we say this real quick? I know we got time for one more question.
Yeah, one more question.
Yep. If you're building a company and not paying yourself, you say, hey, my burn rate is like $2.50. That doesn't make me excited about you. I need you to be comfortable enough that you can focus on this. I need you to have enough, be hungry enough. I don't need you to pay yourself $350,000 a year, right? Because you can get too comfortable and not have enough hunger to push through to achieve the next thing. But I do need to know that you can be focused on the business and not about whether your kids are running around the room or they have. I'm sorry, you can pay your kids tuition. Right? I need you to be able to be focused on the business. And therefore, I need you to have a comfortable enough salary that allows you to do that. And we can scale your salary up over time so they can become more than just comfortable. But don't think that you're doing us a favor by not paying yourself.
And honestly, if you have an idea or a company that people want to invest in, use that as leverage, right? Because if you're afraid to even have a conversation, then you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur, right? I mean, because the only way to scale is using somebody's money. It could be yours, it could be your family's, it could be investors. But as an entrepreneur, if you want a small store, you can take a loan. If you want to grow it into something that is truly going to make a difference, you likely need to take other people's money. So one last question. Go ahead.
My name is Micah. So earlier, like a current theme that all of you were talking about was teamwork. And I want to know, like, as an investor and as like someone who actually founded companies, like, what are characteristics that you look for? Like, okay, like, this is a good team, or like, the product might be good, but like, the team isn't always there. Like, how do you make those distinctions?
Okay,
All right. So one, we want to see a team that can actually move forward. So let's say you have a team that's all technical. It's imbalanced. Like, I don't know who's actually gonna take the city and sell it. I don't know who is gonna be the guy to say, the guy or the girl say, let's not do, like, where does the buck stop? So we'd like to see balance. Two, personally, I think your team is gonna be like family, which means y'all should be able to have fun together and you should be able to fight together. And fight each other sometimes. And so I look for teams that have a healthy dynamic. I don't need everybody saying yes to each other all the time. I also don't need you to fight publicly. So I want to see a team that can push and pull from each other and pull the best. And in many cases, the proof of that is having y'all work together. I like to know that people can have fun together because the reality is a whole lot of hard work. And if y'all don't know how to enjoy each other's company, at some point that thing falls apart. And that don't mean you need to be best friends, but you do need to be able to spend a lot of time together and have a really healthy dynamic. So I think about those things. Also within that, it gets easy for us to look at what have we done in the past individually, collectively, that's often telling. But I also like to know that you guys share a common vision. Like, can y'all speak the same language and be really clear about how you work together to get there? And lastly, I'll shut up. I like to see teams where y'all have minimal egos. Like, you need to have some kind of ego to do this thing. You got a bunch of people don't believe in you trying to do whatever it is you're trying to do. I need to know that you believe enough in yourself. But I need to know, kind of go back to the no ego policy, like, we're still coachable and we can learn, and that goes for everybody on the team. Like, if I got somebody on the team who's like, yo, I can't have a conversation with them because they know everything all the time. Can y'all put them in check, or like, do they really belong here? That's just something that I think about.
And I think Jeff hit it on the head, having clear defined roles. There will be times where you help each other, but oftentimes what you find is two people doing the same thing, which is counterproductive, especially in a small team. I think that's my biggest one, is clear defined roles, working, the ability to work together. I think track record does help with what you've done in the past. But how many hard scenarios have you had and how did you come through it? Because that's the defining. I mean, I'm in an accelerator right now, it's been 6 weeks for venture fund. And in 3 weeks, there were teams that fell apart because they had not worked together. And when it got tough, there was no defined roles, and everybody wanted to be the leader, and everybody wanted to be the venture capitalist because it's sexy, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And so having defined roles and being able to get through those tough times is really important.
My piece of advice would be to be able to look into the mirror as an entrepreneur and say, can I give up control?
Yes.
Can I delegate? Can I trust that whoever I bring along with me is going to make the right decision? Now, it doesn't need to align with mine, but we're able to have a mutual respect, because part of the entrepreneur journey is being able to be a manager, not a doer of everything, right? Because that's when you're a company, when you have other people doing things and you're leading. So I think these guys said everything properly, but my perspective is kind of looking in the mirror and being able to objectively look at myself and say, what do I suck at? And recruiting those people that are really good at it, but then being able to take what they do and say and leave it at that.
Doing a SWOT, the whole team doing a SWOT analysis on themselves. So you know what your strengths are, you know what your weaknesses are, and you know how to work together. I think that's really important.
So we're going to wrap this up, but I want to thank everyone for sitting patiently, listening to us babble. But you know, we're all accessible on LinkedIn or whatever. So we're going to be your biggest fans as you go through this journey of entrepreneurship or being on a team of a small company. So you know, feel free to reach out, tell us about it, and let us know if you need help. TechTown has great non-dilutive resources to help customer discovery, to help MVP, and to help attraction. And so I'm getting the hook again, so we're talking too much. But hey, thank you again for sitting and listening to us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Adrian.
Adrian, how do I remember the Adrian?
The theater now.
Okay, everybody go inside.
Hold on, let's get it.
Josh, that's what I Yes,